What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Dimon Reads Comics. Today we're going to do a review of They Called Us Enemy Expanded Edition. I don't understand why they call it the Expanded Edition when it's hardcover, and when it's just a trade paperback, there's no Expanded Edition to it. So, I don't know. Maybe they added a few things at the end. Maybe, I don't know. I can't really say for sure because I didn't pick up the trade paperback. But they do have a trade paperback of this. I ended up picking it up in the hardcover. And, yeah, so let's go ahead and start with this. So, like I said, this is called They Called Us Enemy Expanded Edition. It is written by George Takei, Justin Eisinger, there we go, Justin Eisinger, Stephen Scott, and art by Harmony Becker. It is published by Top Shelf. It has 224 pages, and there's actually no chapter breaks in between. Like, I had to find places to stop when I was reading this, but there's no chapter breaks in between. It does have beautiful sewn binding. As you can see, there's a little blue coming up. And for those of you that don't know who George Takei is, George Takei played on Star Trek. Like, when it first came out, he was that Asian-looking guy on Star Trek. I know that's kind of racist to say. I apologize. He also kind of showed a few times up on The Big Bang Theory. Where else did he show up? I mean, I heard of him doing some other artwork, maybe. But, yeah, George Takei. I'll show you guys at the back of it real quick. So he's this guy right here at the bottom. Very interesting, and this kind of tells, this is kind of like a memoir of him and what he went through growing up as a kid, which was freaking amazing, so to speak. I like this book to a sense that it kind of reminded me certain things about my childhood, but at the end of the day, it didn't go where I thought it was going to go. Does it have a happy ending? Yeah, things like that, but let's go ahead and crack this open. Let's talk about it a little bit. I'm not going to get into the political stuff because I hate that kind of thing in the first place. And I don't want people to, go against me, nothing like that. I just read it. I enjoyed it. Let's go ahead and crack this open and we'll go, we'll talk about the story a little bit. Alrighty, guys. So let's go ahead and talk about this story of They Called Us Enemy. So when you first open the book, you get the end pages, which this is cool right here. For those who don't know, this is a list of people, actually. A humongous list of people. And I'll tell you guys what that is in a little bit. Here's a title page. They called us enemy. Then you got the people that worked on it. I don't know what they called that page. And then finally, in memory of Daddy and Mama for their undying love and life guidance. So we get started off with this dad. He kind of goes into his kid's room and wakes up his son, George and Henry. Tells them they got to pack up and go outside because they're being forcibly moved from their home. And then as soon as that happens, as soon as that part kind of ends, we get kind of transitioned over to George Takei kind of talking like at this big kind of, place where he's telling everybody his life story. And while he's telling everybody his life story, he starts telling them, about his career that he's had so far. How his parents met in Los Angeles, how his his dad is from Japan, how his mother is Japanese but was born in the States. And then, how they met, how they had, George, how they had Henry, how they had their sister Nancy Ryuko, and how they also had another child, but that died 3 months after it was born. Because I say it because it doesn't say if it's a boy or a girl, and I apologize for that. I know that sounds morbid. And this is during the time of like 1940. It's kind of still during the war of World War II. So what ends up happening is there is right here. There we go. What ends up happening is when George is about 4 years old-ish, 3 or 4 years old, the attack of Pearl Harbor happens. And, the whole bunch of bombs, they blow up the ships and everything like that. What happens after that, and I didn't really think about it until I read this book, is all Japanese people and all, it's weird because I didn't really think much about it, but all Japanese people and all Asian people per se, I guess you can say, were treated as enemies because they thought that they were still loyal to the Emperor of Japan. And so everybody that was born, all the Japanese people that were born in the United States and or came from Japan and were living in the United States before that happened were fine. But once that attack happened, they were considered, what do they call them? Alien enemy. And so as soon as that happened, presidents, senators, and things like that started doing orders saying, you know what, we're going to war. And they do go to war with Japan. But on top of that, they start writing like these laws that all the Japanese people need to be grouped together and sent to a concentration camp. I didn't know about this ever. Like, I just thought we went to war with Japan and we bombed them and that was it. But I didn't know the grave detail that it went into it, as far as it being in the States. So then it tells a story, really, this tells a story of, the backstory of the War of Japan. Not so much of what we're doing with Japan, what they're doing to us, because it really only talks about Japan bombing us and then us bombing Hiroshima and Nagasaki. But in a sense, this kind of tells about all the laws that the United States were doing, what the executive orders, not the laws, but the executive orders that they were doing and giving, so the Japanese were considered aliens. And it was going against the constitutional rights of everybody, and this is what kind of got me thinking about this even more and more. So after all that, it really kind of tells the story of George and his family, the Takei family, going. What's funny is the dad calls it a vacation, and George, being a little kid, he believes that. He thinks he's on vacation for the longest time when he's at these concentration camps. But obviously, we know as adults that it's not like that. But it's just, that's why I said it reminds me of being kids, because as kids, we believe anything. We think it's an adventure. We don't think about the bigger picture until we get much older. And that's exactly what happened. So we follow the story of George Takei and his family, his brother, his sister, and his mom and dad, when they get sent to one of the very first concentration camps for a few weeks. And then they get sent to a big one in Arkansas, where they stayed there for about 2 years. And they pretty much live a life there George thinks it's an adventure. He gets into a little bit of trouble with bigger kids, and while that's happening, the mom's trying to do her best she can for her kids where they're at. The dad, he becomes kind of like the manager for the people, the spokesman, I guess you can say, for the concentration camp. And they're just trying to do the best they can for their families. And then after a while, being there at, the first concentration camp, they get sent to a different one in California. And they stay another 2 years there in California. But the one in California is way different than the one that they were in Arkansas. The one in Arkansas, they were kind of friendly there. People knew each other. They all acted like, family. But once they went to Texas, things changed. Things changed a lot for the Takei family, because since people there at the concentration camp, some of them, since they were being treated as enemies, they thought, F it. If they're going to treat us as enemies, we might as well start acting like enemies. And that's exactly what started happening. They started acting like enemies. And so it became even worse for the Takei family. And it sucked even more. And the reason they ended up going to the one in California, because there was another order that the president and like the courts and things like that, I'm not going to get into it, but they did another order that they gave a piece of paper with certain questions on them to see if they're loyal to the United States. If you answered no to two main questions, you were disloyal to them. And that's why they sent you to this other concentration camp. And it was there where like the supposedly disloyal ones and the ones that were acting like enemies to the United States, even though they were being treated like enemies already in the first place, they were all sent there. And then also, while they were at that concentration camp in California, it got to a point where, people are, the Japanese that were born in the United States, the ones that already had citizenship, they were asked if they wanted to, get their citizenship removed and sent back to Japan. I mean, they were still being treated like enemies after a whole bunch of things were happening. And so George's dad didn't want to do it, but his mom did. And before that almost happened, a lawyer comes in and was like, what happened to you guys was wrong, this and this and that. I'm going to fight for you guys. And, all this shouldn't have happened in the first place, And it's such an amazing story of how certain people fought for the Japanese, even though the Japanese were enemies to us. Because not every Japanese that was on this planet was an enemy. The ones that lived here with us in the United States weren't considered enemies. And it was just so horrible to see what these people went through. And, George telling it through his what he kind of does remember most of it because he was a kid, but at the same time, the most of it he got was from his dad, because they always sit down and they always talked about everything. And so, yeah, once the bombing happened in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, things kind of started, changing at that camp in California. And, after a while, the war was over, and it was like, you guys get to start a new life. Where do you guys want to go? This is the question, no thing I was telling you guys about. And so yeah, like once the war was finally over and the bomb in Hiroshima happened, they were like, well, we're sorry about this and this and this and that. You guys are free to go wherever you guys want to go. We'll pay for we'll pay for a ticket to wherever you guys want to go. The dad was like, we should go back to Los Angeles. That's where we had a home. But the mom, she was kind of like, no, I don't think we should go back there because we're still going to be considered, enemies. And the dad was like, I'll go scout it out and see how it is there and things like that. That whole time he was gone for like 3 or 4 months. The mom, the sister, George, and his brother all stayed at the camp still and waited for the dad until it finally got closed down. The dad sent word to them and was like, you guys can come to California. And when they do finally get to California, they start a new life. And it sucks because they start from the bottom again. One of the worst things that actually I don't like about this at all, and what really got me thinking even more, is George was he was a child. He was removed from his home. He was sent to concentration camps for 4 years. So he's roughly about 7, 8, 9 years old already, ish. He's never went downstairs. So he's never, witnessed and experienced going up and down long flights of stairs. So when he eventually got to a hotel that had stairs, he was afraid to go up and down them. Like, holy crap, that just makes you think so much about it, right? And so eventually the Takei family, they went back to California. The dad started working here and, getting a job and things like that. After a few months, they eventually got a new home and started a new life. And George grew up to become like this successful political person, which I said this end of the book, I wasn't the biggest fan because it got really political, and I'm not going to get into it. But George eventually grew up to be someone important, fighting for equal rights. He was there with Martin Luther King. He talked to a whole bunch of people. He talked about his life, about being an actor. And one of his biggest things is being offered the chance to be in Star Trek. He was going to be a lieutenant. What do they call it? Lieutenant Hikaru Suli. It was cool because he really wanted that role, because it would kind of bridge the hate that people still had for the Japanese. And in the TV show, people would be like, oh wow, this isn't the way it was anymore. So he really wanted that role. He got it, and he went on to live a really successful life. It tells his complete story, how he got married with another guy. He's gay, cool, for each his own. I'm not going to go into that part. But like I said, the end got really political, and I didn't really like the end. And so I didn't like the end because it got political, but I did like how the story ended. I will say that for sure. Here's Barack Obama, and what's crazy is right here, Jesus Christ, people, right here, it's still talking about what's happening today. Yeah, there was such segregation for the Japanese back during World War II, but it talks about that there's still segregation going on today, especially with what Trump is doing. I'm not going to get into it because people are going to get onto this, and I don't want to make this political. But going about what Trump's doing with illegal aliens, with Hispanics, Mexicans, the Israelis, man, it still goes into it a little bit here, and it makes so much sense. Oh man, so I did like that, but I just didn't like that it's so political towards the end. Like I said, the whole Trump thing, the whole yeah, I'm not gonna get into it, but it ends fairly nicely. At the end of it, though, I did want to show you guys this. There's a brief history of the making of the book, of why George Takei did this comic book, and then you got pictures of him when he was a kid. Man, look, you got the dad, you got the mom, you got his little sister Nancy, you got George, and you got Henry right here. And you got George and Henry, you got George, you got his mom and Nancy, and then this is when they first actually got out of the camps, the concentration camps, and they were finally living back in Los Angeles. Man, it's crazy to think about. And what's even more crazy is the list. This is all the list of the. You guys don't know this, but this gave you a list of. I don't think it's the full list, obviously, because obviously the back page as well. There's more, but in total there was 120,000 Japanese people that were in concentration camps back in the 1940s, up until about, it was 1944 to about 1948-ish. So between 1940s and about 1980, or I'm sorry, 1940s to about 1950s is when 120,000 Japanese people were sent to a concentration camp. It says right here, over 120,000 Japanese Americans were in prison in these camps, each with their own stories. Man, that is ridiculous to think about. And you got George Takei looking at the list of people, working with the people that helped him with this book. Talks about a little bit about the panels that he was working on. Here's George Takei working with Harmony, the one that did like the art and stuff like that. Oh, it was just so amazing knowing that he did all this research, his own story about it, the people that really worked on this book. Such an amazing book. And then at the very end, you got a quick biography about the creators. You got George Takei right there. You got Justin Eisinger, Stephen Scott, and Harmony Beck. And then you got the end page. And then at the end page, you got more of the list of people that were in the concentration camps. So a beautiful story. I'm not going to say how it really, really ends. I guess you can say the Takei family does kind of have a happy ending, but whatever they went through, they didn't deserve it. No matter what happened, at least they got an apology. At least George got the actual apology from a president. And it was unfortunate, though, that his dad wasn't able to ever hear that apology from a president. So anyway, guys, I'm not going to spoil any more about it. Certain things do happen in this, certain little twist here and there about plot stuff that I didn't give out because I want you guys to read it. So I'm going to go ahead and let's move on to the next segment where I give this a rating and see what you guys think. Alrighty, guys. So what do I give this book as a rating? To do a quick recap, this is They Called Us Enemy Expanded Edition hardcover. It is written by George Takei. George Takei, Justin Eisinger, Stephen Scott, and art by Harmony Beck. It is published by Top Shelf Productions, as you can see right here, their logo. 224 pages. There was no chapters, so I can't really give you that. So yeah, what do I give? Oh, it does have sewn binding. What do I give this as a rating, guys? Well, I'm not gonna lie. I absolutely love this story. It was cute. It was fun to read. It really made me think about the stuff that was happening during that time because, like I said, I didn't know this happened. The concentration camps for the Japanese, I didn't know it happened. So it filled my head up with, more interesting stuff that I didn't know. So it was creative. It was cute. It kind of brought back little memories of when we were kids. Like, oh, when we were kids, we don't think of this like this. It was cool. It was so heartwarming of a story, but it got really political at the end, which I wasn't a biggest fan of. I liked the art, but I wish the art was a little bit more, maybe colorful, maybe add some hints of color in there somewhere to brighten up certain things. And that's where I didn't, I started kind of like, eh. So overall, I'm going to give this a 3. Now, I'm giving it a 3, but I'm probably not going to keep this book. And the reason I'm saying that is because I do want to make more room for more stuff. So I'm probably going to get rid of this, but I do recommend you guys check it out. It's a pretty quick read. I read it in about a day and a half, maybe 2 days. because I was just kind of trying to, when I read something, I was like, wait this, wait that, and I kind of thought about it. So it's a quick read. If you guys really want to sit down and read it and enjoy the art, it'll take you about a day. It's a quick read. But for me, I'm giving it a 3. I do recommend you guys check it out at least once. I actually think they should put these in schools and have people read it, like, so they can know kind of like the history of what happened there. So yeah, I'm giving this a 3. Unfortunately, I'm not going to keep it, so there's not going to be a reread to this, because I do need to start making some more space in my collection, and to bring in new stuff, or just kind of go make more room. And so yeah, I'm giving this a 3, guys. I know when I said if it's a 3, I'm keeping it to do a reread. I liked it, but I didn't like it enough for me to want to keep it. I was on the edge. I was thinking about it all day. I was like, man, should I keep it? Should I do a reread? I enjoyed it enough, and I enjoyed it to the point where I think one time read was enough for me. So that's why I'm not keeping it, guys. So anyway, I hope you guys liked the review of this. Like I said, definitely check out this book. I do recommend. I don't highly recommend it, but I do recommend you guys check it out for sure. So I hope you guys liked the video. If you guys did, leave a like. If you guys read this before, let me know in the comments down below if you guys enjoyed it, if you guys didn't, what you guys didn't like about it. Don't give too many spoilers away for people that didn't read it. Also, if you guys have any recommendations for what I should read next, let me know in the comments down below. After all that being said, guys, if you guys haven't done so, please subscribe to the channel. It really helps my channel out. Shout out to the people that's been liking, subscribing, commenting, and just watching my videos so far. I've been getting, since I started my YouTube channel, it's not growing huge, but at least I know people are watching it, and that really fills my heart up with joy, thinking like, all right, at least people are watching it. So thank you very much for the people that have been watching it. Shout out to you guys. I appreciate it very much. All that being said, guys, take care, stay healthy, and we'll see you guys on the next one.